let's start with Atletico Madrid against Borussia Dortmund. I think it is pretty big that Atleti are playing at home first. Atleti this season, I think I'm right in saying they've won every game they've played, bar one, which they drew at home. It does create a situation where if you're Borussia Dortmund, you kind of know what you have to do back at the Westfalenstadion. Both these teams are currently fourth in their domestic competitions. Both these teams are in danger of not qualifying for the Champions League next year. Probably Atletico Madrid in more danger simply because there's really no chance that, or almost no chance that Spain will get 5 spots next year, whereas there's a very good chance that Germany will. We think this is really going to impact kind of their approach and preparation to the game. They cannot tank and rest players and whatnot. They have to take this seriously, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think either of those two teams are going to win the Champions League this season, so they will still have to focus a lot on the league for obvious reasons. But I think if you're Dortmund, you're quite happy with Atletico, who I think were of all the others that Dortmund could face, maybe the weakest one, if we can call it that. Although I think the boost from their win against Inter is going to be massive for this team. And then if you're Atletico Madrid, you've picked the weakest team of the whole draw, so you would be happy with that. They are so good. They've been so good in the Champions League or the Europa League at home. The Civitas. I think I was saying the other day on the show with you yesterday on Thursday that the 50 games that El Cholo has coached in Europe at home, they've only lost 5 of those 50. It's remarkable. Only Pep and Jose have the same record, which is obviously a record. So yeah, at home they will fancy the chances, and then you go away to Germany for the second leg. If you've done all the work in the first leg, you'll be okay. And even if you don't, we've seen this Dortmund side at times struggling a bit at home against PSG in the group stages, for example, against Milan as well, even against PSV in the last 16. So for me, Atletico have to be favorite. Maybe not massively, maybe a 55-45. Maybe if you really believe in El Cholo, 60-40. But yeah, they would be favorite.
I'm going to go 60-40 in this one. I'm a big believer in shutdown keepers, and I am a big Jan Oblak fan. But you're right. This is wide open. Any one of these teams can step up. They have the individuals, but I think Atleti are favorites here. So I got to do this. But the other one, Paris Saint-Germain against Barcelona, an injury-riddled Barcelona. And we have to say this. I mean, I think there's a chance Frankie de Jong is back for this game. We know Gavi and Pedri will not be back. And we have this thing hanging over everybody that Xavi has said he's not going to be back next year. I don't know what will change his mind. How do you approach this if you're Luis Enrique?
I mean, I think if you're Luis Enrique, and we saw tactically how good they were against Real Sociedad, who are good. They're a good, decent team, good little team, but not obviously of the level of a Champions League quarterfinal. So there are things that have been working really well for PSG. Some patterns of play that are clear to see. I think they need one. I mean, this is a big game for them. Even if I think they would be favorite against Barcelona, I think they're a better team than Barcelona. A Barcelona side that right now relies a lot on Lamine Yamal's talent, who's 16, and to a certain extent were carried by Pau Kubasi in the last 16 second leg against Napoli, who's outstanding at the back at 17 years old. So I think PSG would be favorite. It's Kylian's time, of course, for his last season at the club. Again, taking him to Spain for this round of the Champions League, where all the eyes are going to be on him, like they were in the last 16 against Real Sociedad. And I think if Mbappe is on top form, he won't be. He's unstoppable. So for me, Luis Enrique, it's all about putting Kylian in the right environment, like we saw in that second leg against Real Sociedad, where Dembele played at the false 9 to leave all that space for Mbappe, who scored 2 goals. That plan worked perfectly. I don't know what the plan would be against Barcelona. I think Barcelona will be more predictable now when you play against them. They're a good team, of course, and they are capable, as we saw against Napoli, home and away, to have really good moments in games, but they don't have the consistency over 90 minutes. That's why I think PSG will have to be favorite. And for me, I would go 60-40 PSG, maybe even 65-35.
Yeah, for me, I think Paris Saint-Germain, heavy favorites in this. I'll go as far as 65, maybe even 70% against Barcelona. There is the undeniable fact that Paris Saint-Germain, I know Brest are one of the stories of the season, but they're not going to catch them. Barcelona, of course, don't have much to ask of the league, but so they can also kind of really focus and prepare on this game, which I think is important. But then it comes down to talent. It comes down to coaching. It comes down to the authority of the coaching. I love Xavi, but I think Luis Enrique, really, really is likely to have a plan. I look at matchups too. I mean, Mbappe against Koundé or Araujo, depending how he uses them. We don't know if it's going to be the Dembele false nine. If we've seen Gonzalo Ramos through the middle. We've seen Mbappe through the middle, right? There's a lot of weapons. It's difficult to prepare. It was wonderful as Pau Cubaresi, or Cubaresi, as I think from now on going forward. It's a big, big ask. The only thing that could really mess things up, I think, is if Mbappe somehow gets distracted. Negotiations with Real Madrid, stuff off the pitch, the kebab shop that he's suing. I don't know, something like that. And then chaos, controversy around Paris Saint-Germain. But then again, they're used to living with chaos and controversy, as are Barcelona, frankly.
Yeah.
So, exactly. I think we're on board on that one.
Yeah.
Arsenal against Bayern.
Wow.
So this is interesting. All right, we covered the subplots. Tuchel back to London. Harry Kane against his old enemy. There's one undeniable thing here. Arsenal are involved in a legit three-way title race.
Yeah.
Bayern are not.
Yeah.
To me, that's absolutely huge.
Yeah, you're right. It is massive. I think it is massive. It will make a big difference. Even if Bayern will never lay down and let Bayer Leverkusen, they will try to keep winning, to keep the pressure on, but it's 10 points. Let's be realistic here with 9 games to go. So they know the chances are slim to be able to catch them. So the Champions League becomes massive. You believe, and you wrote a really good column about it a few days ago, that Bayern can still win this competition, that they can raise the level when it matters the most in the Champions League, which I agree with you, to be fair. And that's why, for me, this is very much 50-50. I believe in this Arsenal team. I believe in Arteta. I think they can, on their day, beat anybody, even over 2 legs. We saw that when they beat Liverpool and City in the league, for example. They can also have bad days like everybody else. And this Bayern team has been in crisis a lot this season. They haven't really played that great. So it takes us to, I think, thin margins. It might be a case of Saka against Alphonso Davies or Rafael Guerrero, whoever plays on the left-hand side. It will be Kane, who was so good at scoring with Spurs against Arsenal in all those North London derbies that he played through his career. Him against Gabriel and Saliba. Even the 2 goalkeepers, Raya and Neuer, one with huge Champions League experience in Neuer. Raya, who was great against Porto in that second leg, but who's discovering really the Champions League. So there's so many narratives, so many great things. It's going to be fascinating.
Yeah. You gave this a 50-50, right? I'm going to lean Bayern on this one. And look, I think Arsenal are a better team. If Bayern were in the Premier League, they would be behind Arsenal this season. I really believe that. Equally, all the eggs are in this basket for Bayern. I do think experience matters a little bit, the ability to be rattled. You look through this Arsenal team, and other than Gabriel Jesus, who we're not sure if he's going to start, other than him, Havertz and Jorginho, correct me if I'm missing somebody, there's nobody who has any kind of significant European experience or Champions League experience, certainly. Neither does Mikel Arteta as a coach, other than as an assistant.
As a number one,
to Pep, certainly not as a number one. There's a lot more of that on the Bayern side. I think Bayern are also a much deeper team, despite all the crying and whinging that Tuchel does about, I need a 6, and a number 6, all this nonsense. I think these things matter. I think there are some players, I think, for Arsenal who, if they get hurt, there is an alternative, right? And we saw what happened to Saliba last season. Everybody's got players like that. Obviously, there's an alternative to Harry Kane if he gets hurt. But I think overall, Arsenal are more vulnerable. Arsenal will be tested much more in the league. So for that reason, I'm going to say Bayern 52%. There you go.
Okay.
Arsenal
I know.
48%. Finally, I think we can call it the big one. Yeah.
Yeah, the
team
best
that's
for
won more
last.
Champions League titles than anyone versus the the reigning champions. Real Madrid against Manchester City, Jules.
Yeah, I mean, for Real Madrid, it's I think all about revenge. Revenge is a strong word, but take it just in a football perspective. After what happened last season, the 1-1 draw at the Bernabeu in the first leg was a good draw. Vini scoring first, KDB answering, and I don't think anybody expected what we saw then at the Etihad in the second half. For me, certainly the games where I was at, that I saw live, the best of the season by far. That City performance, especially in the first half, was just out of this world. They pressed them so well. They suffocated them. They outplayed them from start to finish pretty much. And I think if you're Real Madrid now, you remember what happened last season and you want to do better. It's the same format, home at the Bernabeu and second leg in Manchester. It's going to be fascinating. Right now, I know this Real Madrid team has great qualities. You know, that midfield of Valverde, Camavinga, let's say Tchouaméni, Bellingham, for example, if you can add Kroos or Modric if you want for control, experience, creativity, anything you want, maybe. But I think this midfield is impressive, especially Bellingham in the form that he is, and then Vinicius and whoever else plays with him up front is good. I think the City team is great on the other hand, and especially if it's a Nacho, Rudiger pair of centre back against Haaland, for example. If KDB is fit, if Foden is still in the form that he is currently, I think it'd be very difficult for this Real Madrid team to stop City, especially with the second leg in England. So I will have to say City are favourite for me. I think 55-45 is probably fair, but I would understand if people think that it's even higher than that, because right now I can't really see this Real Madrid side being able to beat City over two legs.
Yeah, look, I mean, City are favorites for a reason. I think the second leg at home would have made a difference for Real Madrid, the whole miedo escénico, all that stuff. And we've seen in the past, it certainly made a difference for them. I think an advantage for Real Madrid, though, is that, again, they're not involved in a title race. They've gotten more accustomed to playing with their injured players. You know, I'm guessing Ederson will maybe back, may just be back for this game. If he's back,
just about should be April.
I think that's touch and go. And again, when a goalkeeper just comes back, is he the same? I don't know that. I mean, I think that could be a factor. You know, you mentioned Nacho and Rudiger against Erling Haaland. Well, that's the best case scenario for Real Madrid, that it's those two guys, because you get beyond that. I mean, maybe you can. Tchouaméni gives you something a little different, but then you lose in terms of physicality. Militao, there's some suggestions that he could be back in training, but I have no idea what condition you're in. Certainly after the injuries he's had, it takes a long time to get fit
sure. You
again.
can't play a game like that straight away.
Sorry,
you can't play a game like that, straight away.
I'd be very surprised. I hope we see him at some point in the Champions League, but I don't think it's going to be in this tie. So I think this just puts a lot of pressure on Real Madrid. Flip side, City are in a three-way title race like Arsenal. And, you know, City have had some defensive hiccups in the way they play. I think, you know, we're both big fans or people who really recognize the importance of Rodri. I think I'd go so far as say that Rodri is maybe the one player that is maybe the most indispensable player, to maybe even more than Haaland.
I mean, every game they've lost, City this season, was without Rodri. So I think this is a fair point that you're mentioning.
Yeah, I mean, look, we can say Haaland's a better player, sure. De Bruyne is a better player, but they've won. They've got other guys who can do what De Bruyne and Haaland do effectively. I don't think there's anybody else who can do what Rodri does. Could an injury come into it? Wear and tear? I think Real Madrid need that. So yeah, for me, I'm gonna give Real Madrid a few more chances, just because, hey, it's kind of like Ancelotti. There's a reason he's won it a bunch of times, and they can pull things out of their hat. They have individual match winners, which I think they certainly have as many individual match winners, I would say, as City. And City have a lot, you know. When you think of Vinicius, Bellingham,
it's more about I think the how you will press or how you can beat the City press. That I'm not really sure. Which is exactly what we saw in that second leg last season, for example, at the Bernabeu. I'm not sure how adventurous, let's put it that way, City will be, and how much they will be. They might be a bit more cautious. At the Etihad, I'm just not sure how Real Madrid can go and press and get at them, and on the other hand also resist the press that City and the intensity that City are going to put and the pressure that they're going to put on them in their own half, like we saw last year. I don't think the Jude Bellingham arrival, for example, changes much the dynamic on that point, and that's where Real Madrid lost that second leg last season. It was not unable to respond to that intensity and that pressure from City, and City recovering the ball all the time, super high in the Real Madrid half. And even if you put a Cruz and a Modric this season in these games,
And
I'm
you
just
can't
not
play them
sure
both
they
at
would
the
be
same
capable of
time.
that.
And you're not
No.
going to play them both at the same time for obvious reasons. It's really funny with Bellingham. I'm going to come out, I'll be the first to say it, maybe. I'm wondering if this is the game where Carleto pulls something out of a hat and maybe we see Bellingham playing in a different position for that very reason. If you do think they're going to come and try to press the life out of you, and you're concerned about how press resistant some of these guys can be, what if you play Bellingham deeper? What if you bring Bellingham back to his original position, throw a curveball at them? Not saying Vinicius on his own or whatever, but you try to do
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
something like that. There are options. I think Ancelotti doesn't often mess with his system and his concepts, but he's done them. He's been around a long time. He knows all of them. I wonder if he's going to be tempted to do that. But anyway, Jules, I'm excited. I like this
Yeah,
competition. You know
it's
what?
going to
We had
be
a
amazing,
conversation.
man.
Those people said, "Oh, the round of 16 is boring." No, I loved
It
it.
wasn't.
I thought the games were tight. I thought they were good. Some really good football. We know some big guns are going to necessarily go out at this stage of the competition, so that's going to generate more stories. That's going to have a big impact.
Yeah.
Yeah. What can I say? I'm hyped and I'm amped.
Yeah, let's go.